As an Amazon wholesaler, it's easy to feel like you don't have control over your margin. Well, today we're gonna jump into one of the things that can actually affect your margin today, and that's how to get a better deal from your suppliers. So stay tuned, and we're gonna try and get your negotiation skills up and get those prices down. Over my time as a seller, I've negotiated with hundreds of suppliers, and being able to get discounts really does make a difference, and you never know until you start the conversation. So today we're going to go over some tips and tricks on how to unlock more value and get lower prices from your suppliers. Establish a positive working relationship. The first thing in any business relationship is developing a relationship. It's really easy to jump in and start going strictly to business. There's some counterproductive ideas that get pushed in the media. One of them being that good businessmen are often jerks and sharks. While this may be true for some, I've found that actually developing a good, solid relationship with my suppliers is where those really juicy details can come in. Better relationship, the easier it is for me to make a solid ask. So be willing to talk with them. There's plenty of times where you hop on a phone call and they really have stuff to get off of their chest. There might be stuff at home or stuff that they see. Some people are worried about politics or inflation you don't know. Let them talk. One quick tip is know that the thing that people most like to talk about is themselves. Give them an opportunity to talk about themselves. Get really good at asking questions. Get really good at being an active listener. So make them know that you're listening to them and you're interested in what they have to say. I've seen these pan out over years. The better relationship you have, the more they're willing to do for you. I had a supplier who would call me consistently every month for years, and she was always able to cut me deals that she couldn't cut to anyone else. And it was just a matter of me being willing to take time out of my day, have a great conversation with her, talk to her about her kids, how they were doing in school, the sports, their extracurriculars. The better you have this relationship, I promise, the better discounts and prices you can really get out of a relationship. Now, this isn't gonna work for everyone. There are people who are pressed for time. There are people who are strictly business. So being able to read and understand what people want, and over time, you're gonna get that. Once again, that's patience. You'll get to know this person and realize some people only want to talk to you if there's a problem to be fixed. They want to know the problem and they want to get out. So make sure that you're aware of that. And then the other side of this is don't just build a personal relationship, but make sure that you're building a business relationship as well. They need to know what your needs are, what your business looks like. The better they understand you, the better that they can help you with your needs. And it's also important for you to understand, how do they make money? What are their incentives? If you start to know that there's times where I'll have them tell me hey, look, I have an incentive this month to sell X unit or X SKU, and if I'm able to help them with that, they'll help me down the line. Understanding their incentives is essential so that you two can collaborate and make sure that you're both rowing the same direction. Clearly define your needs. Make sure you're clear in what you need and what you want. There are plenty of times where you can't get everything you want today, but let them know of hey, I would like to work to a point where I can get X, whether it's certain terms, whether it's a certain price point, and maybe it's a thing where you have a conversation of, hey, when you hit a certain volume, we can get you there. So you can build out a roadmap. Just because you can't win today doesn't mean you can't win tomorrow. So always be thinking in the future. That's how you build a big business, right? Is that you're not just trying to survive today, you're trying to build into the future, and you're laying seeds, you're building the groundwork, you're really laying that foundation that you're gonna build your business on in the future as you cultivate these relationships. So make sure that they understand your incentives, make sure they understand where you think the relationship's going and where you want it to go, and that'll help things go over much smoother in the future. Take the time to do market research on the niche and the category that your supplier plays in. The more you're able to do research and appear as a professional, the better your relationship's gonna go. Understanding a specific niche or category, understanding what market forces there are, is gonna be super helpful in this negotiating process. Another thing to understand before even going in is what to expect price-wise. Some industries, wholesale prices could be 60% of retail price, others it's going to be 30%. Understanding this beforehand helps you to know what the limits of negotiating are. If you're going into an industry where the standard is 60% of sale price is what your wholesale cost is going to be, but you're asking for a 30% price, you're never gonna get that, right? So understanding your industry, understanding where the wiggle room is, understanding the cost structure of your supplier is going to be important before you even begin to negotiate. You need to be prepared. You need to nail down these numbers if you really want to be able to have a productive conversation. If you start way far away, it's going to be a tough conversation. We're not haggling on the streets of Mexico for souvenirs. You need to sound professional, and you need to be at least close when you start the negotiation process on what price you want. Up next, research and professionalism. The next tool of the trade is to leverage volume and commitments. You committing to a certain amount over the course of the year, or you hitting certain volumes, kind of like we touched on before, opens the door for you to be able to have more negotiating power, right? It's in their best interest to grow this relationship and to continue to move volume. So understanding their incentives, like we said earlier, is really, really important. Make sure that's part of the conversation. Maybe pull up your last couple invoices and put it together and see how much money you've been spending with them. If it's been $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, and talk about the relationships you already have, and talk about how that's going to change. You can even promise of like, hey, if I can get better terms, if I can get a better discount rate, I could see myself purchasing more, whether it's 20% more, 30% more, or 100% more. That eases the conversation. This is the biggest lever you have in this conversation, so make sure that you're leaning on it as often as you can. Next, be prepared to walk away. This is difficult, especially as you've started to build these relationships, but if things aren't going your way, you need to be willing to walk away. If it's not going to be a profitable relationship for you long term, I have fired so many suppliers over the years. I've fired hundreds of suppliers. You have to be willing to walk away if they're not going to be able to do what you want to do. If it's a completely one-sided relationship, then it's just never going to pan out for you. Now, that being said, don't allow yourself to be the one-sided relationship either, or you will be the one to get walked away from. Don't be afraid of silence. Don't be afraid of silence in any negotiating conversation. Whoever is willing to be more uncomfortable for longer often is the one who gets what they want out of a negotiation. So don't be afraid to just let things sit. Don't rush to provide solutions. The longer you can sit gives you an opportunity for them to stew on it a little bit and figure out what is it that they really want, and let them make the first move in that scenario. When possible, get multiple quotes on the same product or the same brand. I've done this all the time. That's why you use price lists. I'm always running price lists through Smart Scout, and I'm collecting quotes from multiple different brands to help me figure out where the best price point is. And while I wouldn't suggest like name dropping who else you're getting prices from, if you're letting people know, hey, I'm actually able to get this for $5 elsewhere, it helps them understand that you're a professional. You know the market, and you know where prices can and should be. And if they want to win your business, they're going to have to give you a reasonable quote. Having multiple quotes allows you to get the best price possible. Don't forget to be polite and professional. One of my favorite analogies in any relationship is to learn how to shear the sheep, but not skin it. Once again, pop culture teaches us very counterproductive strategies of trying to be a shark. That can work for some people sometimes, but in my experience, knowing how to shear the sheep and not skin it, in other words, be willing to leave something on the table so that you can come back to the table later on, is really, really important. You need both parties to win in this scenario if you want to keep a long-term relationship. Yes, today you might be better off like negotiating the hardest bargain possible, but actually over the years, having a better relationship is going to pan out well. So make sure you're always professional, you're always polite. That's worked for me and it should work for you. Following up. Most sales across any industry are done through follow-ups. And the follow-ups can feel tedious. They can feel like they're not worth your effort. It is where your value is going to happen. Your ability to follow up and your consistency in following up is really, really important here. So make sure that you're following up on what's previously been discussed. You're following up on any conditions, on any terms, and you're just having follow-up conversations to make sure that you're pushing the deal along in the way that you want. Keep in mind that if people aren't replying to your follow-up emails, it doesn't mean that it's a poorly written email. Some of the best written emails never get opened because your subject line isn't great. So make sure your subject line is optimized. And also remember that they, like you, are very busy and are probably running quite a large business. So you're gonna have to follow up more than once, like multiple times, to be able to just catch up enough mind share to be able to finally have the right conversation. I know personally, I've had people have to follow up with me 6 to 7 times before I have the right conversation. It's nothing to do with me not wanting to do business with them, but just as professionals, we get very, very busy and very backlogged. So realize that it's not you versus them, it's you versus their attention span. And that's the battle you're waging. So just make sure, follow up, follow up, follow up. Last note here is to stay informed and be adaptable. Always be curious, always be paying attention to what's happening in the market, and especially in your niche. You should always be looking at Smart Scout, make sure you're understanding if your niche is growing, if it's shrinking. Look at competing products, and if there's a tough time in the supply chain, be understanding if certain orders can't get fulfilled, if certain things have to change, because that's going to happen. That's why it's important to be using a tool like Smart Scout, and subscribe to our newsletter to see any larger industry-wide trends, but I encourage you to become an expert in your own niche as much as possible. Key takeaways here: communication is what's going to win the day for you. Make sure to be clear and concise in communication. Build strong relationships. Know what you want and what you can actually get out of a relationship, so you know exactly what to ask for. Don't forget to follow up. If you found any of this information helpful, please like, comment, and subscribe, and use coupon code SMART2024 for Smart Scout for a 25% off coupon for your first 3 months, and we'll catch you on the next video.